The skies over the Middle East are once again filled with fire. Missiles are crashing down on cities, military bases, and critical infrastructure. On one side stand the United States and Israel. On the other side stands Iran. This war has already entered its second week, but as the fighting intensifies, one question is becoming bigger and bigger. How does this war actually end? Because the President of the United States, Donald Trump, seems to be sending mixed signals. One day he talks about bringing down Iran's ruling system. Another day, he hints at making a deal. And at times, he demands nothing less than unconditional surrender. So what exactly is Washington trying to achieve? Is this just a military campaign? Or is there a much bigger geopolitical strategy behind it? In today's video, we're going to explore the real objective behind the war with Iran and what could be Trump's endgame. The joint military campaign launched by the United States and Israel has now entered its second week. During this time, missiles have struck multiple locations across Iran. As the fighting intensifies on the battlefield, the political and military messaging from Donald Trump has also continued to shift. At times, he suggests that Iran's ruling system must collapse. At other times, he signals that a negotiated agreement might still be possible. And in some statements, he goes even further, demanding Iran's unconditional surrender. Since the start of the war, U.S. forces have reportedly struck nearly 2,000 targets inside Iran. These attacks have killed several high-ranking Iranian officials. Among them was the country's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. The strikes have also targeted key infrastructure, including nuclear facilities, oil refineries, water purification plants, and even civilian areas. But Iran has not remained silent. In response, Iran has launched hundreds of missiles and thousands of drones toward Israel and neighboring Gulf states. These attacks have targeted American military bases, energy infrastructure, and diplomatic compounds. So far, more than 1,200 Iranians have reportedly been killed in the conflict. In one particularly devastating incident, a bombing at a school killed over 160 children. Meanwhile, reports also indicate that 7 American soldiers have been killed. Despite all this bloodshed and destruction, analysts continue to struggle with one key question: what exactly is Washington's objective? Because the Trump administration has still not clearly explained how it intends to end this war. The conflict escalated dramatically on February 28th. On that day, the United States launched a major strike that killed Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Khamenei had ruled Iran with an iron grip for 37 years, and earlier in his career, he had also served as the country's president. Washington appeared to believe that his sudden death would create a massive power vacuum inside Iran's political system. Officially, the Trump administration never openly declared that it was pursuing regime change, but many analysts believe that the ultimate goal of the campaign was exactly that: the collapse of Iran's current ruling establishment. According to Mustafa Haider Sayed, executive director of the Pakistan-China Institute, the main objective of the attacks was to weaken the system enough to trigger a popular uprising from within. A similar view is shared by Muhannad Salim, a professor of international politics and security at the Doha Institute. According to him, Washington's calculation was relatively simple. If you remove the head of a powerful system and inflict enough damage on its body, the entire structure might collapse. And even if it doesn't collapse completely, it could become so weak that any future leadership would never be able to restore Iran's former strength. But the reality on the ground has been very different. Despite the deaths of Khamenei and several senior military commanders, there has been no clear sign of a major fracture within Iran's ruling institutions. Instead, Iran moved quickly to stabilize its leadership. Soon after, Tehran announced that Khamenei's 56-year-old son, Mujtaba Khamenei, would become the new supreme leader. For many analysts, this development revealed a major miscalculation from Washington. The U.S. administration underestimated the resilience of Iran's political system and its ability to continue functioning even under prolonged war. The military campaign has been named Operation Epic Fury. Since the start of the operation, Donald Trump has repeatedly delivered messages that sometimes appear contradictory. On one hand, Trump is fundamentally a businessman, someone who prefers to end conflicts through deals. On the other hand, as a wartime president, he also wants to appear tough and decisive against his enemies. Early in the war, Trump called on members of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to lay down their weapons. He even promised that those who surrendered would be granted immunity. He also urged Iranian diplomats to abandon the regime. But the battlefield reality has been very different. Not only has the IRGC refused to surrender, they are now leading Iran's counterattacks against the United States and Israel. They are also reportedly planning further operations against other targets in the Gulf region. Meanwhile, Iranian diplomats have publicly rejected Trump's proposal and reaffirmed their loyalty to the Islamic Republic. After the February 28th attack, Trump addressed the Iranian people directly. He told them that the moment of freedom was approaching. He suggested that once the war was over, the Iranian people themselves would take control of their government. This message also effectively sidelined Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's former Shah, who has long hoped to return to power. But shortly afterward, Trump posted on his social media platform that no deal would be possible without Iran's unconditional surrender. According to analysts, Israel sees the current war as part of a much larger regional strategy. Especially after the October 7th Hamas attack, Israel has been trying to reshape the geopolitical balance of the Middle East. Their goal appears to be clear. They want to weaken or eliminate any regional power, including Iran, that could challenge Israel in the future. Washington has also considered another option, encouraging an internal uprising inside Iran. One possibility involved Kurdish groups. The United States has long maintained ties with Kurdish factions in Iraq, and it also has a military presence in Erbil. However, analysts warn that this could be an extremely dangerous strategy. Any large-scale Kurdish mobilization could alarm Turkey, potentially creating a second regional crisis. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, has already stated that Iran is fully prepared for any possible U.S. ground invasion. But American domestic politics tells a different story. The painful memories of the Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan still loom large in American politics. For many analysts, launching another ground war would be politically disastrous for Trump. In the end, many experts believe the most realistic outcome of this war could be a coercive settlement. In other words, Iran might agree to certain concessions, perhaps on its missile program, nuclear restrictions, or regional activities. And in return, Trump could present that outcome as a major victory. Because in politics, the definition of victory can often be rewritten. Trump could stand before the American public and say, Iran's supreme leader has been eliminated. Iran's military capabilities have been severely damaged, and therefore
the threat of war between Israel and Iran has hung over the Middle East for more than 40 years. Iran embraced the Palestinian cause, handing the hastily abandoned and ransacked Israeli embassy in Tehran over to the Palestinian Liberation Organization under Yasser Arafat.
Trump may have opened this conflict with aggressive
Iran,
moves,
under its new leaders, called on all of the Muslim world to unite against Israel.
In
2017, this clock was unveiled here, counting down to 2040, to the destruction of Israel.
The political landscape built
because that is part of the propaganda of the religious regime in Iran. The square is often the scene of protests like these, transporting the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel rhetoric of the Iranian authoritarian government.